Yu-Gi-Oh! Is about to change once again, forever. Alliance inside the new core set in the TCG is coming very soon. It's going to be releasing on April 30th. And besides maybe wrapping up the Sinful Spoils story, it's going to be introducing so many incredibly powerful cards into the game. And something people has feared for the most, new support for Ryziel and Malice. Brand new incredibly powerful archetype and incredibly strong standalone cards alongside new support for existing themes and the continuation of the new Mitsurugi TCG exclusive archetype. So many things to look forward to in this set. And of course, as always, if you want to pick up some of the cards and boxes, head over to tierzerogames.com using code galzo5 at checkout to get your cases, boxes, or of course the singles. Now let's begin with my personal favorite archetype from the set. Kicking it off with a bang, it is Regenesis. Regenesis is one of those new, incredibly powerful non-extra deck archetype. It is made up of monsters with 2500 attack and defense. And basically all you need is to have a monster with 2500 attack or defense on the field, not only your field, to special summon each one of them. And each one of these is a powerhouse. We have the Regenesis Archfiend, which is basically a searcher, but this one can only be summoned by revealing another monster in your hand with 2500 attack and defense, and of course we'll add you a Regenesis card from deck. And then you have the names. You have Regenesis Dragon, which you can tribute and then target a spell or trap your opponent controls and banish it. You have the Regenesis Sage, which is an Omni-Negate. Yes, it will negate the activation and destroy a card. And Regenesis Warrior, which bounces a monster your opponent controls by tributing itself. Then you have the Regenesis God, which can only be summoned by banishing a face-up monster you control with 2500 original attack or defense. And if it is special summoned, you can set a Regenesis spell or trap from your deck, and it gains 2500 during the battle phase. Now, the thing about all of the names, except for the God, is that all of them, during your opponent's end phase, will return to your hand. So you're going to tribute them to activate their very powerful effects. Then in the end phase, you're going to get all of them back and start over pushing once again. And of course, since they are very big, it's not going to be a problem to kill. So these are very similar to Kashtras in a way, probably not as strong because their quick play kind of locks you out of the extra deck. Tor Regenesis, which is probably going to change its name, is a quick play that special summons a Regenesis monster from deck, sends it to the graveyard during your opponent's end phase, and also locks you from the extra deck until at the end of the next turn, which is basically Dogmatica. You have the Regenesis normal spell, which takes an Regenesis monster and adds it to your hand or sends it to the graveyard. Or if you already control a Regenesis, you can add a monster with 2500 attack or defense from your deck instead, which is huge. Any Bestial, Kashtira Unicorn, Bestial Lubellion, so many powerful cards with 2500 attack or defense. This card is great. And then of course we have the Continuous Trap, which says that you can send a Regenesis monster from your deck to the graveyard and target a face-up monster your opponent controls and changes to face-down defense position. And during your opponent's turn, you can send this Continuous Trap to special summon as many Regenesis monsters with different names as possible from your hand or grave and or banishment, which is incredibly strong. This is probably the biggest premier archetype out of this set. It is extremely powerful, but for the fact that it kind of locks you out of the extra deck, it's probably going to see some more play in more of a stun fashion with cards like Nadir Servant and the Dogmatica engine. But stay tuned for that. That's going to be super cool. Next up, we have another premier support archetype for Ancient Fairy Dragon. We have a new field spell, the World of Spirits, which revolves around light beasts and the Ancient Fairy Dragon itself. When it's activated, you can add a monster that mentions Ancient Fairy Dragon from deck to hand. And during the end phase, it destroys all the turn's player's attack position monsters, which is really powerful. You have a new Kariba in Karibon the Fairy Spirit. You have Regulus the Fairy Beast, which is also a support card, and of course Spore the Fairy Cell. So these are all retrains supporting the new Ancient Fairy Dragon, which is called Ancient Fairy Life Dragon. It's level 8, not 7, Dragon Light monster, and it requires one tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters. If it is synchro summons, you can draw a card. Then, if the field spell we mentioned in the beginning, the World of Spirits, is on the field, you can add a light beast, plant, or fairy monster, or one Eternal Sunshine from your deck to your hand. Now this card is really great because of course it draws you a card but extends your combo if you're playing the pure Ancient Fairy Life Dragon variant, and this card is seeing play in the Blue Eyes deck because it can be summoned by Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. And the Eternal Sunshine that the dragon mentions is a pretty powerful card, being a continuous trap that says once per chain you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and until the end of this turn its current attack is halved and its effect become negated. You can only use this effect up to a number of times per turn, up to the number of Ancient Fairy Dragon and monsters that mentions it you control. So again, pretty much a vanilla strategy, but very cool for the AFD fans. Next up, we have another archetype returning, which is at Ignister, but it's definitely not going to be the one you think about. This type of support is actually pure Malice support, and we'll talk about exactly why. There's a few new cards, mainly backup at Ignister, which is a really powerful card. It's a Cyber's Dark Tuner, which means you can search for it with Cyber's Wicked. If you control a Cyber's monster special summon from the extra deck, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if it is normal or special summon, you can add a Dark Cyber's monster from your deck to your hand, except backup at Ignister, then discard one card. The monster you're going to add is Wizard at Ignister. If you control a Cyber's monster special summon from the extra deck, which you will because you already control Cyber's Wicked and the backup that you summoned, you can target one Dark Cyber's monster in your graveyard as cost, special summon both the Wizard and that monster in defense position from the grave, and it locks you for Cyber's monsters for the end of the turn, which is crazy. Because now you're able to get basically 5 bodies on the board with just going up into Wicked. So Wicked searches for the backup summons itself and searches for the Wizard, and then the Wizard targets any Malice monster in the grave, special summons it and that. And then basically you have 4 monsters on the board with a link rating of total of 5, and of course a Malice name, which you need in order to summon the Malice monsters. And your big payoff is going to be the new Link 5, a Code Talker at Ignister, which is going to be a part of the new Malice end board. So get used to it. Requires 3 or more effect monsters, and if it is Link summon, you cannot special summon other monsters for the rest of the turn. And also you special as many Cyber's monsters with 2300 attack from your graveyard as possible to the zones this card points to, and if you do, this card gains 500 attack for each. So basically you're going to summon both of the Malice links that are 2300 attack. And then when your opponent activates a card or effect, as a quick effect you can tribute one of those Link monsters this points to and negate the activation, and if you do, banish that card. Extremely strong. And of course we have the continuation and possibly the end of the Sinful Spoils story. We have a new powerful engine with Diabell's the White Witch and Diabellstar the Sin Adjudicator. So these are probably the final forms of those 2 iconic Sinful Spoils monsters, and they work really well together in a lot of decks today in the OCG. People just play them for their splash ability. So, the new Diabell's is always treated as a White Forest card, and in order to summon it, you can send a spell or trap from your hand or field to the graveyard as cost. If it is normal special summon, you can send a Sinful Spoils or Diabell card from your deck to the grave, which means you can now send Diabellstar the Sin Adjudicator to the grave, and it can banish one spell or trap from your graveyard or hand and special summon itself from hand or grave. As a quick effect, you can pay half your life points and target one card your opponent controls, destroy it, then if another Diabell is on the field, you can special summon an Illusion or Spellcaster Tuner Synchro monster from the extra deck. So basically, just with Diabells and a spell or trap that you can send, you get Diabellstar to the grave, it summons itself back, you can make a rank 8, or you can just keep it as an interruption because you already control 2 Diabell monsters. In addition to that, we have of course the field spell Witches of the White Forest, which is huge because White Forest are getting a huge buff. On activation, it can add a White Forest monster from your deck to hand, but it locks you out of special summoning dark monsters for the rest of the turn, but that really doesn't matter. This package also comes with a new dragon, the Snake Eyes Execute Dragon, which is a level 12 dragon fire synchro. Really good, and of course it's very easy to summon level 12s in this deck, and it's basically a quick play Flamberge Dragon. During the main phase as a quick effect, you can target a face-up monster on the field or another graveyard and place it in its owner's zone as a continuous spell. Also, you cannot use this effect the next turn, which is like Mirror Jade. During the battle phase as a quick effect, you can target 2 cards on the field, 1 monster and 1 continuous trap, and destroy them. This card is a powerhouse. Now, these are the main themes of this set. Let's get into the new support for returning themes. So of course we mentioned Ryziel. Ryziel is getting 2 new cards and extremely underwhelming, which is making me very happy. It's getting a new normal trap card, which basically is irrelevant to even talk about, but it's also getting a new monster, Star Ryziel, which is a light pyro level 4. You can special summon it by detaching a material from a monster you control, and if it's summoned this way, it locks you out of the extra deck for rank 4s. If it is special, you can set a Ryziel spell trap from your deck, which now guarantees that you don't necessarily have to resolve Duo Drive, you can just set the field spell with this card. I hate this deck, whatever. But Malice, my favorite deck and your most hated deck, is also getting incredible support. So first of all, it's the new Bestial Malice card, which kind of disregards the fact that the Bestials are limited in the OCG and probably are going to be limited here. Maybe they already are by the time you're watching this video. And it's Malice P March Hare. It's of course another level 3 Cyberse Dark Monster, and it has a really good effect. During the main phase, if this card is in your hand as a quick effect, you can banish another Malice card from your hand or grave, and if you do, you special summon this card, which means you now have more copies of the Bestials you desperately need in order to extend. But it even gets better. If it is banished, you can pay 300 like the rest of them, but this time, this card doesn't special summon itself. It targets one of your other banished Malice monsters and adds it to your hand. And Malice are getting a new quick play spell called Malice in the Mirror, which is probably going to be a mandatory one of in Malice decks. It's a quick play which is great, and it targets a face-up monster your opponent controls as cost and banishes a Malice monster from your hand or face-up field. And if you do, you negate that targeted monster's effect until the end of the turn. It's just a monster negate. And if it is banished, which you can do using many of your Malice cards, you can target a Malice card in your grave, banish it, and if you do, you add a Malice card from the deck with the same type as that card. So you can access another monster, you can access a field spell, and of course you can access one of your traps. This support is really, really great. And of course, from the same set comes more support for Ryuge, which is getting a new Pendulum monster and a new trap card. Don't want to waste my time talking about this deck because it is completely irrelevant. Heraldic Beasts are actually getting really cool support, and it's seeing experimentation as a rank 4 deck in the OCG with Ryzel. The main and coolest card that this deck is getting is number 69, Nice Heraldry Crest, Dark Matter Demolition. It requires 5 level 4 monsters, and it can only be destroyed by our card effect. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can detach a material from this card, then target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Its name becomes Unknown, and as a continuous effect, when a monster effect is activated by your opponent is resolved, if that monster's name is unknown, you negate that activated effect. And of course, it also comes with a quick play spell, Heraldry Flash, that targets any number of face-up monsters your opponent controls and changes their names to unknown. During the end phase, if this card is in your grave and you control a Psychic Xyz, you can set it and banish it when it leaves the field. I think this is very creative, very cool, very much like the Predaplant counters. I love it. Some notable support for the Tactical Tri deck, the Cyber Dragon, the Live Twin, and the Eldritch. Cyber Dragon are getting 2 new cards with Cyber Jormungandr and Cyber Dark Worm. Evil Twins are actually getting a Link 1, which is sick, and people have been experimenting with it in the OCG. Of course, it is a Light Fiend, so that's very scary. And lastly, Eldritch is getting a new Continuous Trap that can finally recycle your banished traps, and a new Big Fusion. And we have more themes getting new support, including Materiactors, Argo Stars, Shining Sarcophagus with a new Dark Magician Gold that can actually add it from the deck to the hand, Dragon Rulers, and the returning support for the TCG exclusive archetype Mitsurugi. We don't know what the support is, you probably maybe know by now, but there's only an image on the website and it is getting new support, which is great because that archetype is one of the most successful ones in years. Now for some of the free agents and new staple cards that are going to be thrown around in every deck. For Regenesis and Bestials and Kashira as well, we have Dragon's Mind. It's a new counter trap that says when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated and you control a monster with 2500 original attack or defense, negate the activation. If you do, destroy that card. If this card is in the graveyard, you can also pay 2500 life points and set it, but banish it when it leaves the field. And this is going to be a staple in the new Regenesis deck and possibly other slower stun decks with 2500 attack or defense monsters. We have a new normal trap, the Psalm of Kings. If you have no monsters in your graveyard, you can activate this card from your hand. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you negate that effect. Then, if you have a trap in your grave, you can add 1 Dominus card from your deck to your hand. 2 of the most pivotal cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Today has been Dominus Impulse and Dominus Purge, transformative cards that have been really played heavily in the recent formats. Dominus Purge in Fiendsmith Kashira, and now Dominus Impulse and Fire King, and of course Malice. So essentially it will add 1 of those to hand if you already have a trap in the grave. But there's of course a caveat. If you activated this card from your hand, you cannot activate monster effects in the hand, graveyard, or banishment until the end of the next turn. This card is great, and the Dominus cards are really scary. We have Philia Regis, which is a card that is very close to my heart. I like this. It's probably a little bit more of a support for Dragon Maids, but it is a Dragon Fusion. It is a level 8, so we're going to look at it. It requires a Dragon Fusion monster and a level 7 or higher Dragon monster. And during the main phase, as a quick effect, you can target one of your opponent's cards that they control or in their grave, and you banish it. Then if it was banished from the field, you must return a Dragon monster you control to the hand. So, you know, it's very strong just to target and banish a card. So, of course, you're probably going to have to get rid of this card and summon it again. At the start of your opponent's battle phase, if this card is in your grave, you can return a Dragon monster you control to the hand or extra deck, and if you do, you can return this card to the field. You can special summon it. This card is extremely cool. Gonna be experimenting with it in Branded. Then we have Chaotic Elements. This card is gonna change a lot of things, but not exactly right now. So Chaotic Elements is a normal spell card that says that you can add a level 5 or higher light or dark, pyro or aqua monster from your deck to your hand. Then if you have 3 or more pyro and or aqua monsters in grave, you can destroy one card on the field. Now basically everything else is kind of irrelevant here because this card is a searcher for a new archetype that has not even been released yet in the TCG called K9, when one of their starters being a level 5 dark pyro monster. So this card might have been originally designed for the Ashen deck and the Testina deck, which kind of check off the requirements for searching with this card. But of course, accidentally, this card searches the K9 cards, which start off your K9 combo. We're going to talk about K9 in another video, but that archetype is looking really promising, so this card is going to be promising as well. And lastly, I wanted to wrap up this video with a card that is probably the new lore card for the next theme of the game after the Sinful Spoils has died down. It is a normal spell card called Gordian Schneider, and it says, this card's activation and effect cannot be negated. At the start of your main phase 1 or 2, you can target any number of face-up cards on the field. For every targeted card, banish 1 card from your hand, or 6 cards from your extra deck face down, then return the targeted cards to the hand. Now, this effect is pretty strong, right? This card's effect and activation cannot be negated. It is guaranteed removal at the cost of cards from your hand or extra deck. But more importantly, it is a standalone card. It doesn't have to do anything with any other archetype. It's very similar to Sinful Spoils of Subversion Snake Eye, which started the Snake Eye lore, and it is also mentioned on the product page of the Alliance Insight TCG webpage. So is it a new theme? Is it a new lore? I don't know, but I think it very well might be. This has been Alliance Insight. Thank you so much for watching this entire recap. If you got to here, you're a real champ. So you gotta hit the like button, and of course, make sure you're subscribed, because if you're watching this kind of video for so long, I mean, you need to watch more of these. And of course, you want to get some cards, some singles, some boxes, or some cases of Alliance Insight, make sure you head over to tier0games.com and use code galzo5 at checkout for 5% off your entire order. Thank you so much for watching. Alliance Insight looking great. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.